Chapter 1151, Anthony on Tour Part 3. As it turns out, the colony's new trading partners are fairly accustomed to bringing less swim-capable creatures down into their watery abode. Perhaps not necessarily ones as large as I am, but hey, it all works out in the end. When I arrive at the beach, I find a team of Brathian mages ready and waiting to transport us down beneath the waves. So how does this work? I ask Enid. The old woman frowns at me. She's a lot less mobile than she used to be, and the colony has given her a permanent aid in the form of a support ant for her to lean on. How would I know? She says. I've never been down this deep, and I've certainly never been invited to visit a Brathian in their home. Are they famously inhospitable or something? Nothing of the sort. They just don't often invite any but their closest allies into their cities. Not the ones underwater anyway. So I suppose they have cities above water on the surface. Still, I would like to know how the heck this is going to work. I make a request of the mage assigned to me, a sturdy-looking fellow absolutely dripping in enchanted gear and cores. My guess is it's all to try and protect him from my powerful ant influence. He passes on my question, and eventually I get connected to Thoris again, who explains the process to me. Our mages will create a platform for you all to stand on, then shape the water around you, allowing the platform to descend, while keeping you all quite dry. Using magic, they will leach oxygen from the water, so there is no need to fear suffocation. While you are in our care, no harm will come to you, rest assured. I'm not even sure I technically need to breathe, but the humans surely do. Hey, weaklings, that's going to need to be a sturdy platform, I reply, shifting my feet a little. I'm not as lightweight as I used to be. No fear, Iran assures me. We are quite practiced at this, and regularly bring entire trade caravans beneath the waves. Well, this whole venture is an exercise in trust. If the colony is going to successfully get along with anyone down here, we need to show we are willing to take a leap of faith. Extend the antenna of friendship, so to speak. Naturally, if the Brathians betray us, the antenna of friendship will be retracted, and replaced with the mandibles of, oh no you didn't. Until then, I will lead by example and show trust. For an influx of cores that will empower my siblings, I'm willing to take a lot of risks. And if our goods prove successful, then maybe people will be less likely to declare war on us. We've got a war with the Krath brewing at the moment. I'd rather not have to keep butting heads with the Carmadoan Legion. One enemy at a time, please. In short order, a wide platform is formed, almost 50 by 50 meters, and we all file onto it. A few minutes later, it begins to descend, and remarkably, the water just slides up the sides, as if we are protected by an invisible dome. Which we are obviously. It's a rather unnerving sight, if I'm honest, and my poor ant heart quavers as the water rises up the walls, arches overhead and then meets in the middle. I'm completely submerged, and down we go, even deeper. The view is spectacular, though, holy moly. The water of the fourth stratum isn't like that rubbish water from Earth. I don't care how fancy you think that mineral spring is, that water is like the muck at the bottom of your garbage bin compared to this. Filled to the brim with life and water mana, the lake is a dazzling, vibrant place filled with light, plants, fish, sharks, crabs, jellyfish and everything else aquatic. The water shimmers like jewelry as we sink further and further down, transitioning from a bright turquoise to a deep sapphire as we leave the surface behind. Enid grabs onto my leg. It's beautiful, she murmurs to my mind, and I have to agree. I mean, it's no well-built tunnel, but it'll do in a pinch. The monsters down here seem a lot more reticent than I expected. During the wave, we were getting a horde of massive sea beasts pouring out of the water at a constant rate, but now that we're down here, I don't sense any of them nearby. I ask Iran about it and she explains. We take measures to passively keep the monster population away from us. We can't push them away from too large an area, or that causes problems of its own, but for now, we have extended that protection up toward your nest to ensure a smooth journey. Interesting. I focus a bit more carefully, trying to get a sense of what they are doing, and I vaguely get a hint of something I think I may have sensed before. It's a monster, for sure, the touch of my own kind is quite recognizable. Strong one, too, but no sooner do I catch a whiff of it than the sense is gone, hidden from view. A moment later, we cross over some sort of underwater barrier and find ourselves within the Brathian territory proper. We start to see them, humanoid, scaled people with fins on their arms and legs, drifting in the water. They swim incredibly fast, shooting through the water like they've been blasted out of a cannon. I see farms of kelp, Hunters out collecting fish and checking traps, patrols of armed and armored soldiers, and then we draw close enough to see the city. It's larger than I thought it would be, tall buildings formed of colorful stone, or perhaps coral. Sandy fields that glitter like gold flakes, busy community centers filled with Brathians coming and going, buying and selling. In fact, I see a lot of buying and selling. I feel like everywhere I look, there's a market. Is it really necessary to have so many different places to buy and sell? I ask Iran as we float over the city. The people below are so focused on their haggling they don't even notice the giant ant and friends overhead. Iran Thoris smiles as she looks down on the city of her people. It's very necessary. Brathians in general are commercially minded, and those of us who live in the conglomerates doubly so. Most families will run a store out of their house, regardless of what they do for a living. Buying and selling is a way of life for us. If we were to put all of the stores in the city in a single location, nobody would ever leave. And the rioting would be terrible. Whoa there, that took a turn I wasn't expecting. Excuse me, rioting. Oh yes, negotiations can be very passionate. Holy moly, these people are just as crazy as Bane. Instead of worshipping a big ant, they worship commerce. I'm kind of excited to meet the leader of these crazy people. In the world of obsessed business fish, he's got to be the biggest and richest of them all. Chapter 1152, Anthony on Tour Part 4. Satrap Umizan, leader of the Brathian Island conglomerate, turns out to be a festively plump chap, covered in jewelry and floating fabrics that sparkle with unearthly light. He's an impressive sight, that's for sure, but all the expensive accoutrements don't quite manage to distract me from the fact he's the only chubby Brathian I've ever seen. Is it a point of pride or something? Only he can afford to get fat. A symbol of his status. I want to ask. I really want to ask. I know I shouldn't, obviously, but the guy is right there in front of me. It's not like I can't look at him. The satrap bids you welcome to his city. He hopes you find your stay to be commodious and well priced. We're paying for this. You invited us. It's a traditional greeting. Now he is speaking of our trade agreement. He hopes there will be a great deal of mutual profit for years to come, allowing both our peoples to prosper. I can agree with him on that. At this point, the beaming satrap claps his hands together and a host of servers emerge from behind pillars and seemingly from out of trapdoors. They come out of nowhere. Each of them bears some sort of dish or drink which they begin to dispense amongst the gathered dignitaries and officials. Beside me, Enid gratefully accepts something that kind of looks like some sort of fish on a cracker. But the cracker is wet. The Brathian themselves seem fine to move in and out of our bubble, perfectly able to breathe within the water or the air. It's a bit cramped for me, so I have to keep my legs tucked close to my body, but overall, I'm enjoying myself. It's interesting getting to meet new people. To one side, Bane is grandly gesturing, really starting to warm up his vocals in discussion with a bemused-looking Brathian lady. Before he can really get going, I sidle over and prod him with an antenna, much to his conversation partner's shock. Relax a little, I admonish him. What are you going to tell them? The Great One is an amazing, divine creature. It's going to be a hard sell when I'm standing right here, my legs folded so I don't get my antennae wet. Urahem, your grace is abundant to all who perceive you, Great One. I think she's genuinely afraid of you, I say, taking a look at the hapless court official or big shot trader, more likely. She does look quite unnerved. I resist the urge to reach out with a mind bridge and reassure her we aren't all as weird as the one-armed priest. I'm under instructions not to initiate connections with people. It makes sense, when you think about it. A mind bridge may be a wonderful tool of universal communication, but it's also a means of launching violent and disturbing mental warfare. Monsters as evolved as I am are typically more than a match for an individual, even a powerful one, or so I'm told. Anyone connecting to me runs the risk of me battering their mind in a one-sided beatdown. I understand the caution, but it makes the whole thing a bit boring, since most of the people I know are engaged in conversation with new people. That's when the satrap swaggers over to me, a bevy of unhappy-looking mages in his wake. How does he swagger while swimming? I honestly can't tell you. He just does. There's some gesturing, some muttered protestations, some careless waving away of concerns, until finally a tentative link is formed with me. Hey there, how are things? Any chance I can get some food? I'm starving. The giant ant monster telling the mage they were hungry apparently wasn't the relaxing opening I thought it was. Food will be provided. I am Aleves, the dungeon seer who serves the satrap. Nice to meet you. A dungeon seer, We only got some of you types recently. Crazy what you can learn. Anyways, the satrap is here. I suppose he wants a chat. That's right, although we have warned him against it. He is a unique and powerful man who we do not like to risk. I urge you to act with restraint when your mind is connected to his. I generously wave an antenna. Of course, you guys have shown us hospitality and friendship, so we'll do the same. Relax a little bit. Although, I'm serious about some food, everything is bite-sized, for me. Any chance I can get something a little more substantial? Perhaps impatient with the delay, a new and powerful mind jumps onto the bridge. Come on, Alevis, you're taking forever. Hello there, Big Ant. Anthony. Of course, Anthony. Welcome to my city. I have to say, I'm excited to meet you, very excited. Oh, because of the rumors about my incredibly shiny carapace. It is magnificent, he says, eyes gleaming with avarice. I could sell it for an absolute fortune. I'm not even sure what it's made of. Are you sure you don't have a spare? I don't, and I'm not going to tell him what it's made of, either. A new, hitherto unheard of type of diamond. I don't want to know just how valuable I'd be, and finding out when surrounded by the greediest merchants on Pangara sounds like a bad idea. I'm impressed you came down, by the way, the satrap tells me warmly. Most monsters who reach your level of intelligence and power tend to be risk-averse. You don't age, can't die of disease or infection. So long as a monster continues to live, the path to infinite power remains open. Yet here you are, at the bottom of the lake with 1 trillion liters of water bearing down on you. I don't think I'm being particularly brave. I've always believed the colony needs to extend a leg in friendship if we want to get anyone to cooperate with us. There's also another reason I don't think I'm threatened here. I'm worth way more to you alive than I am dead, I admit to the leader of the Brathian. If I die, millions of ants are going to find their way down here and you may even win that fight, but war is expensive. Very expensive. I get the impression you Brathians don't fight all that much if you can avoid it. The satrap grins broadly and claps me on my foreleg. It's been known to happen, he says, but as you say, rarely. And you're exactly right. The entire reason I reached my current lofty status is because I have a nose for money, and you, my large insectal friend, absolutely reek. I get what you're saying, but that's a bit rude. We have an extremely delicate sense of smell, it's how we communicate. I mean no offense, of course. This deal has tremendous potential. Tremendous. We are going to front significant capital to make this tour a success. Soon enough, the wealth is going to flow like a river. Not a measly river either, one with gusto. Chapter 1153, Anthony on Tour Part 5. The Brathian continue to be quite friendly and open with us, even allowing the carvers to peek into their workshops. The results of that visit were apparently a little humbling. They're way ahead of us, Smithant admitted freely. She hasn't changed much since the last time I saw her, in terms of attitude at least. Focused, a bit grouchy, entirely obsessed with her craft. It's not always easy for me to tell, since I'm so much larger than every other ant, but I'm fairly confident she's evolved recently as well. There's a definite metallic sheen to her carapace and I'm not sure she always heated metal via her mandibles, or used her own carapace as an anvil. A nifty couple of additions, she doesn't even need a forge to work anymore. Case in point, she's busy testing some intricate wire thing, even as we talk. Is it uncomfortable having your legs bend backwards like that? The spot she uses to hammer on is just behind her head. Her eyes are mutated enough that she still gets a good view of it, though she sometimes needs to turn a little. They don't actually bend backwards, they rotate in the socket. So is that uncomfortable? No, it sure looks weird. Sue, we're a long way behind them. Yes. I think they didn't care if we saw them at work, since we aren't at a point where we could comprehend their advanced techniques. Their use of mana during the forging process is far beyond what we are capable of. For example, I'm fairly sure one of the forges we saw was actively infusing water mana into the metal as it was being worked. I've never even thought of doing that, let alone have any idea how it would be achieved. I guess there's going to be a lot to do once we get back from this trip, I muse. How long do you think it will take before we can match them? The grizzled carver cleans off her antennae as she ponders. A few years, I would say. For our smiths to really push their skills into the higher ranks, we need to investigate more advanced techniques like these. Now that we have a clue, it should help us advance, albeit slowly at first. There are other secrets they reveal to us as well. I thought I felt a big monster sitting around here somewhere. I'm surprised you noticed. The Shulk are fairly private creatures. You'll forgive me if I don't take you down to speak with it. Hey, a monster who enjoys a little privacy, I can respect it. It's not like I'll ever get privacy ever again. How far away from the colony would I need to be in order to be alone in my own head? Even if I got there, Chrysalis would be latched onto my carapace, no question. I really hope I get back before she wakes up. I left a note in the event I didn't, but I don't think it'll be enough to pacify her. Marsban Corazon is apparently the brother of the satrap and their lead fighty guy. I don't know his title. Unlike his pudgy, cheerful and fabulously wealthy brother, this guy is more jacked than a house of cards. If the satrap is the fattest Brathian I've ever seen, then Marsban is surely the most muscular. Wearing his shining, gold-plated armor that positively gleams with the weight of enchantments it holds, he cuts quite the figure amongst the rest of the guards. I mean, they're all tiny compared to me, but I'm trying to pay attention to the little people. So are all Brathian settlements built around one of these guys? At the bottom of a large fissure that runs straight through the middle of the Brathian settlement, the Shulk is a huge monster, tier 7 at least, its core gleaming like a miniature sun. Part crab, part oyster, the thing has shells on its shells, and spends almost all of its time just chilling down there. Most of them, Marsban informs me readily. You would have felt the barrier you passed through when you entered our territory. I nod. That is a field projected by the Shulk. It keeps smaller monsters away, enriches mana, and reduces the burden of water pressure, allowing our settlements to thrive at greater depths than we would normally be able to live comfortably. In exchange, we provide for the monster's needs. We feed it, keep it informed and entertained, and help to propagate their species. After all, more Shulk surviving to maturity means more places we can live. So this is a mutual agreement. These Shulk are intelligent monsters. Oh, they are extremely intelligent. For monsters, they are relatively weak, especially through the early tiers, so it usually takes them a long time to become strong enough to settle down. This Shulk is over 1,000 years old, and has seen much in its time. Deep below, the crab front part of the monster rotates and eyes stop to look up at me, so I wave an antenna in greeting, only for the creature to blow a few bubbles and go back to minding its own business. I get the picture, I'll get off your lawn. Sheesh. After a bit over a day, everything is prepared and a grand procession prepares to exit the Brathian city. Along for the ride are many of the dignitaries from the island conglomerate, including Marsban and Iran, the satrap's wife. Apparently, his daughter is also along for the ride, which seems odd. It's fine, I suppose. We rise to the surface on our platform of air, the bubble finally breaching the surface as the water runs down the side. Ah, the fresh, open air of the fourth stratum once more. A surprisingly large fleet of sleek ships greets us atop the tranquil waters of the lake. It takes a little while, but we manage to pack all of the ants, all our goods, along with the Brathian contingent aboard, and then we are on our way. Mages conjure winds to fill the sails, and shift the waters along the sides of the boats, speeding us across the lake. We're going to head to Lakespire first, Marsban informs me. It's a gathering of various conglomerates. Think of it as a more or less permanent market the size of a city. If we can get other Brathians to pick up the goods, they'll be able to reach markets further away that our conglomerate doesn't reach. Sounds good. Chapter 1154. Anthony on Tour Part 6. I've got a ship to myself, pretty much. A wide, flat-topped barge with enough room for me to lie down and stretch my legs, allowing the fresh, watery breeze kicking off the surface of the lake to run through my antennae and over my carapace. It's not a bad life. Flatteringly, they've plopped me in the middle of the fleet, surrounded on all sides by the majestic vessels of the island conglomerate. There are worse ways to travel, I guess is what I'm saying. I did offer to fly myself there with gravity magic, but my fellow ants decided we should just accept the hospitality of our trading partners and do things their way. Fine by me, I suppose. It's just a shame they miss out on such a wondrous sight as the great flying Anthony. How are you, eldest? Every now and again, other ants are brought aboard to catch up with me. Thankfully, the Brathian haven't allowed the more enthusiastic humans traveling with us to board my ship. I can still hear them from where I am, shouting and praising away on another boat further back while I flop about on mine. Today, Cobalt has popped over and I'm glad for the company of the little ant. Not having my 3 closest friends and closest companions around has left me feeling lonelier than I'd expected. I'm fine, Cobalt, just watching the world go by. It really is something. I haven't been in the 4th stratum long enough to get a good look at everything, but it's like the place was designed for eye candy. Everywhere you look, there are stunning views. Even with near 360-degree vision and thousands of lenses, I'm still not able to drink it all in. The waters of the lake are bright, almost crystalline, filled to the brim with life and water mana. A whole ecosystem of monsters live down there: fish, sharks, squids, giant fish, giant sharks, giant squids. Every once in a while, something breaks the surface, showering the surrounds in drops of water that shine like jewels. Beyond that are the mountains. Rising from well below the water line, they tower up into the sky beyond the level one can see, meeting the bottom of the third stratum somewhere kilometers overhead, obscured by mist and cloud. Each one is an absolute titan, and whenever we pass close enough by one, they are absolutely bursting with life. Monsters, plant monsters, oversized and filled with vigor, they shake the ground with their steps as we drift by, spectators to the struggle. I never really expected to see so many settlements. It's kind of weird to see people just hanging around, I say. They aren't really hanging, are they, eldest? Cobalt asks, confused. They're just walking right. Yes, I sigh, wishing I could roll my eyes. So particular. I was just pointing out that we didn't see anything like this around our mountain. The further we travel, the more commonly we see civilization, as some would put it. Walled settlements, large cities, inhabited mountains. I think we saw an inhabited flying island as well. It flew overhead, which was interesting. The Brathians were quite mad about it, though. Showering down from that particular island was one of those constant waterfalls, springing from an endless well of water mana. The fleet had to be protected from a deluge of thousands upon thousands of liters of water. Ah, I noticed that as well. Apparently, it's all down to the mother tree. She can be an unreliable and somewhat dangerous neighbor. The mountains close to where she makes her home have been largely abandoned over the years, and now it's considered too difficult or too expensive to root her out. That's one of the reasons Satrap Yumizan is so rich. When everyone else moved out, he picked up his conglomerate and moved in, judging that the tree wouldn't bother them if they stayed in the waters and left her roots alone. He was right, and profited greatly, so I'm told. Stupid tree, why does she have to be so unsociable? Sheesh, you can't even tolerate people living in a mountain next to you. I'll tell her straight up, if she tries to kick the colony out, I'll nibble on her roots until she collapses. Some of the places we've passed have been pretty big, surprisingly big, considering they're built on the sides of the mountains and not inside them, but apparently none of them are big enough to warrant a stopover. Just how big the places we are going to visit are is starting to worry me. Anyway, I thought I'd let you know that the fleet is going to be stopping soon. We've almost arrived at our destination. Lakespire. Wow, it's taken a few days to get here, which doesn't sound like much, but with the wind and water manipulation going into moving these boats, we are moving. I wouldn't be shocked if we'd traveled well over 1,000 kilometers. Maybe even 2. So have they told you how we get down there? Like all of the biggest Brathian settlements, this one is underwater. I doubt they're going to put the entire fleet in a bubble, so there must be some way of getting us all down there. I asked a few times, eldest, but they wouldn't tell me. They seem to want it to be a surprise. My ship has pulled closer. I think it's time for me to get back. See you when we get to the bottom, eldest. All right then. Thanks for dropping by. With a running start and a powerful leap, Cobalt flies over the railing of my own ship and is promptly yoinked out of the air by a wind mage, who pulls her back onto her own ship. Just when I'm wondering if I should nap or continue to admire the view, Marsban emerges from below deck with his son, Theras, by his side. A moment later, I feel a mind reach out to mine. Greetings. Hello, again, Alevis. I try not to sound immensely weary with this whole facade. I fail. It's simply protocol, the dungeon seer sniffs. Even if you were a Golgari, or human dignitary, you would be subject to the exact same restrictions. I get it. As if I would try and melt their minds while aboard their ship. Where's the trust? Eventually, I'm connected to Marsban via the mage. Hey there, Marsban, come to flex and work on your tan. Theras claps a hand to his mouth and tries to contain a laugh. I guess I was connected to him as well. No, the Brathian replies humorlessly. I came to inform you of our imminent descent. Yes, Cobalt mentioned we were getting close. I was starting to wonder how we were all getting down there. Bubble generators, he tells me. Bubble generators, I ask. Bubble generators, he nods. Chapter 1155, Anthony on Tour Part 7. A bubble generator, as it turns out, is pretty much what it sounds like. Each creates a thick layer of protection over the open topside of the ship, which all of a sudden is now fully submersible. The Brathian are absolute masters of their craft, I have to say. Marsban explains the process to me as it happens. First the ships take on a bit of water, making them heavier, and we start sinking. Normally, this would be terrible, the ships are literally sinking, except these ships are designed to do it. As we get lower to the water level, I watch as the shimmering bubble forms, shortly before we sink far enough that the water begins to foam up the sides of the ship. When it's just us aboard, we don't even need the bubble, so long as we keep enough air below decks to prevent us from dropping too fast, Marsban says. Indeed, not every ship is deploying a bubble, only the ones with the colony and our allies on board. It's a wondrous thing to see as the fleet slips beneath the waves, although it's immediately overtaken by something else I spot. An underwater mountain, its peak terminating just a few meters under the water's surface. Obviously, this is the spire part of the lake spire. It's a pointy old thing too, resembling a spear more than a mountain. The further we descend, the more of it is revealed, and the more impressive the view becomes. The Brathians seem to have a way with coral. They use it for their buildings, some of them anyway, growing and shaping it into whatever dimensions they want. The spire is absolutely covered in the stuff, all of it glowing bright beneath the waves, and teeming with Brathians. There are glowing docks extending out from the mountain, and I see hundreds and hundreds of ships, some with bubbles, some without, all tethered and hawking their wares. Extending my senses, I try to get a sense of the mana in the area, and sure enough, I feel like I detect several of the reclusive shulk, extending their protection over a wide area, encompassing all of this enormous market. Welcome to Lakespire, Marsban says formally. Other communities like to think of it as the Brathian capital city, but it isn't. It's much more important than that. Makes sense. These people pretty much worship the art of commerce, and this is the largest market their people have created on Pangara. It's less like a capital and more like a temple city. You see that area there, with the majority pinkish, purple coral. He points off the side of the ship and I swivel a little to get a better look. I've been warned not to move much, balance issues. Yeah, that's the area rented by our conglomerate. We'll be docking there and inviting traders in to meet you and see your wares. I sigh, kind of feels like I'm going to be ogled like a prime piece of meat. There's a reason it feels that way, he tells me bluntly. That's exactly what's going to happen. They'll want to see you, talk to you even, though you can expect more of those protocols you seem to hate. Traders are risk-averse, but they also know the greatest profit comes from taking the right risks. If they're going to buy into your goods, they need to know that you are stable, a cooperative species of monsters. If the colony decides to go wild and attack everyone, then you'll be wiped out and nobody will touch the products these merchants have sitting in their warehouses. Well, I can't really argue with that. Except for the wiping out part. Give us a little time, and we'll be invincible. Fair enough, I'll be good. It's a shame I won't get a chance to visit and explore the markets myself. At least, I'm assuming I won't get the chance. For some reason, I doubt they have the room to accommodate me underwater here. There's no chance Smithant, Cobalt and the others don't go absolutely crazy out there, though. I know for a fact the colony sent them with a significant amount of wealth in the form of cores. It's their job to purchase samples for us to break down and study. Hopefully they do well negotiating with the Brathian merchants. Our descent slows the closer we come to the vast underwater mountain until we are sliding gracefully forward and down, slowing further and further as we draw closer to the docks. Well before we are tied down, I can tell our large fleet has gathered a significant amount of attention. It's probably not every day a few dozen ships slide into port at the same time. It'd be more if the colony hadn't been so willing to cram into the holds. Some of the larger ships have hundreds of ants crammed inside, perfectly content to be squished on top of each other. When we finally dock, Marsban and the other bearers of Brathian authority descend from the ship and there is much pointing, bowing and discreet bribing. Why do they have to bribe their own port authorities? I put it down to Brathian customs, and shrug it off. The colony really won't do well here. They would refuse to pay a bribe, not out of ethics, but because they wouldn't understand the idea of someone not doing their job without being paid on the side. In only a few minutes, the fleet is crawling with activity. Literally, crawling. From below decks, thousands of ants emerge, carrying crates, laying out the cargo and setting up what will be our trading area for the next day or so. In short order, the largest ships tied closest to the dock have been transformed from graceful-looking tubs to sparkling bazaars, with the complete range of the colony's finest put on display. Everything from our rugs to our sweetened jams has its own stall. All we have to do is wait for the customers to arrive. And they do, shockingly quickly. Brathians emerge from the city in such numbers I fear we are under attack for a minute. Rank upon rank of them, each more elaborately outfitted than the last arrive, stopping several hundred meters away and filling up the narrow paths and passages around the coral buildings, staring us down. They look hungry. They smell sweet, sweet deals. Suddenly, it's like a switch is flicked, and the gathered merchants charge the fleet with a roar. From my position, I can only clack my mandibles in disbelief. What is this? Black Friday. Chill out a little. Chapter 1156. Anthony on Tour Part 8. Regardless of the quality of the goods your colony produces, there will need to be a reduction in the price due to your very nature, a snooty Brathian merchant says to me. Inside the bubble, these, I'm assuming, exceptionally wealthy men and women aren't quite as impressive as they are outside of it. Their flowing robes and elaborate garments are adorned with loose fabric that dances and swirls through the water as they move through it. In the bubble, it attempts to do the same, powered by some enchantment, but ultimately it fails to be nearly as impressive. We're monsters, I reply, flatly, though I suppose you could make an argument we are similar to the Bruinchi. Only the first queen was actually born from the dungeon, the rest of us are her children, either directly or by several degrees. The Bruinchi don't have cores. Oh, we're obviously more monster than they are, I don't mean to imply otherwise. You were saying something about our nature. Monsters don't adhere to the same levels of cleanliness or hygiene as the civilized races, the merchant declares as if stating the obvious. There is no doubt your produce has more contamination than would otherwise be the case. No way she said that. I focus a bit to see a little more clearly. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's a she. Imagine attacking a colony, not just any colony, the colony, about cleanliness. It's been the same with all of these merchants. They don't necessarily mean what they're saying, all they want is to find an angle to drive down the price. The fact that they're talking to me at all and attempting to haggle means they're interested in buying. We clean ourselves with acid, I snap. Acid? Do you clean yourself with acid? What? Of course not. Then please take a step away, I don't want my carapace contaminated. Look at that ant over there, you see what she's doing? I point with an antenna and the merchant turns to see. She appears to be rubbing her legs all over herself. You need to look a little more carefully. Look at the hind legs, see how they stretch to the back. It's quick, but you can see it. Yes, I think I see what you mean. She's collecting a diluted form of formic acid on her back legs, then using it to clean her legs, then rubbing those across her carapace. You are watching an acid bath happening in real time. No mold, no dirt, no nothing. We are the cleanliest species on the entire planet. We wash our walls down, our tools down, our floors down, everything, with acid. This seems to take the merchant aback. The entire reason she's doing that, and so many other members of my family, is because we don't feel clean here in your city. We live packed together in nests surrounded by earth and stone, we can't afford for the air to grow foul or anything nasty to accumulate. Why aren't you doing it, then? Holy moly, I want to. My legs are practically twitching. I can't move too much while I'm here on the ship. Anyway, we need to discuss compensation from the city for imposing its poor hygiene on us. Who should I speak to about that? Tilda. I am interested in these ingots, Smith Ant said. I sense an unusual mana inside. Yes, I see what you mean, Cobalt confirmed. The smelting method seems rather unusual, notice the folds in the metal. Of course. The two carvers turned to their agent. The island conglomerate had sent someone to accompany the carver contingent who were out browsing the markets. We are interested in these ingots here. Could you inquire as to the price? Of course. The mage, Irisad, turned to the agent and relayed the ant's request. The owner of this particular stall smiled, despite watching the two monsters nervously, and replied. He's asking for $250. That's at least 30% overpriced. The two ants turned away, disappointed. Every place we go is asking significantly over the value of the goods, Smith Ant said, irritated. Hopefully, we'll find someone more reasonable soon. Behind them, the merchant protested as the ants began to move away, and the mage reached out to them again, laughing. He's willing to come down in price. He's asking $225. That's still 20% too much, Cobalt replied, not bothering to turn around. They took another step. More discussion, more urgency, and Irisad reached out to them once more. As you are very discerning customers, the merchant is willing to come down another 10%. There was definitely a rising sense of mirth over the mind bridge, but the two carvers didn't understand it. Still 10% too high, Cobalt refuted. Why would we ever pay over the market value? It simply didn't make sense. If the items were worth a certain amount, then they would pay that amount for them, gladly. Every merchant they spoke to seemed to expect they would spend much more than they should. Smith and Cobalt took another step. The merchant, visibly sweating at this point, spoke again, and they halted, waiting for the translation to come. We could be looking at other stalls, Smith grumbled. It doesn't hurt to be polite, Cobalt said. The merchant congratulates you on your hard-nosed business acumen and agrees to lower his price by another 5%, Irisad told them, attempting to muffle her laughter. Smith turned around, a hint of irritation showing in the brusque movement of her antennae. We will pay 170, she said shortly. It would have been 175, but our time has been wasted. Is this acceptable? After some grumbling and arm-waving, the merchant eventually agreed and the ants walked out, several cores poorer but in possession of some bright new ingots. I genuinely can't tell, Irisad said to them, if your species are the worst hagglers I've ever seen, or the best. We don't understand this haggling, Cobalt explained. We simply wish to exchange for goods at the correct value. The whole point of haggling is to try and get more, or pay less than the correct value, Irisad tried to make the practice clear to them. To us, it is like a game of wits where we try to best the other party. To the ants, the entire thing reeked of selfishness. You were not entitled to pay less than an item was worth, nor were you within your rights to charge more. The individual was served, not the collective. Selfish. Chapter 1157, Anthony on Tour Part 9. Iran Thoris was in her element. Her mind raced, the blood pounded in her veins and she felt as if an electric current were running over her scales. This tea is quite adequate. Seated across from her, the representative of the deep coral conglomerate, Lissa, tried to conceal her pleasure after imbibing the fine drink. You might change your mind when I tell you how much it costs. She made a gesture with her left hand, a flickering of fingers, and her adversary's eyes widened. That's less than I would have expected. If I'm not mistaken, it's almost half of what your conglomerate charges for its patented tea blend, is it not? Less than half, Lissa grated. Oh my, I imagine the introduction of this tea to the market will collapse your sales precipitously. Are you suggesting this swill is better than our tea? Lissa demanded. Of course not. It doesn't quite achieve the same depth of flavor, and the deep coral blend is famed throughout Pengara for its rich aroma. This tea gets close, but doesn't quite match it. She smiled and took a deep sip. Which is why it's half the price. You can't really believe that our customers will abandon us for this inferior, monster-created leaf, Lissa scoffed, but she didn't quite have the right amount of energy behind it. They would, of course they would. The colony's tea didn't quite measure up in terms of quality, but they made so much of the stuff. In this instance, Satrap Yumizan had been more than happy to undercut the market. Deep Coral have had it too good for too long, he declared, radiating smug energy. Now, watching their representative, Lissa, squirm, she shared his satisfaction. Did they really put this together without tools? In some ways, being a monster is an advantage, Iran informed the Flowing Wave conglomerate representative, Teras. You can see how they have mutated and evolved themselves to excel at a given task. Before them, a carver was demonstrating the way the colony made most of their furniture. At present, the ant was processing the raw wood, using her forelegs and mandibles to manipulate and make extremely precise cuts. It appears the ant is doing most of its measuring by eye. Her measuring. Market testing had revealed it was important that their customers not refer to the ants as it. Such terminology otherized the colony, making them seem cold and more monstrous. Teras rolled his eyes, perfectly aware of what she was attempting to do. Her measuring, if you must. Well, let's ask. Nearby, a mage was stationed for this very purpose, and the two approached him. They relayed their question, and the mage then turned to the craftsman to get an answer. Honored crafter Carpentant says she is using her antennae and forelegs for measuring purposes. The ant in question turned to them and extended her front leg, allowing Teras to lean forward and inspect it. Are these markings? He wondered. Along the inside of the leg were evenly spaced marks running up to a meter long. It takes a trivial amount of evolutionary energy for the carvers to maintain a permanent ruler on their legs, the mage continued her translation. Early on, the colony realized the importance of standard measurements. Carpentant then turned to the wood once more and indicated something, making swift motions with her legs and antennae. And now she is demonstrating how, after measuring, she will mark the wood with pheromones to record where to cut. With skillful application, the scent trails can be made exceedingly thin, perfect for precise cutting. Ferris nodded to himself, impressed. It seems that at some point, tools will be necessary. Crafting high-quality furniture requires extremely precise cutting, after all. Carpentant paused as the mage relayed the message, then grasped the beam of wood before her in both forelegs. In one delicate motion, she angled her head and made a smooth, slow cut. With one of her middle legs, she seized the offcut and held it out to the representative to take. He reached out and took it, looking down at a sheet of wood so thin and delicate he could see through it. Any further questions? Thoris asked with a small smile. Tilda. Do you really expect me to believe that a species of monster is capable of creating fine cuisine? A chef belonging to the Swift River conglomerate scoffed. They eat biomass, and I'm fairly sure they don't take the time to cook it. There was a round of snide laughter from the gathered traders and cooks. Each of them was tasked with either sourcing or preparing the foodstuffs for the wealthy conglomerates. It was predictable to Thoris that they would object to eating food prepared by monsters. She stepped forward. Obviously, most members of the colony eat biomass, in the main. However, an interesting thing occurred when they began to mix with other peoples. The ants developed a taste for certain foods, initially as a treat they offered to their queens, which then spread throughout the population. This started mainly with the drinking of tea, but has now widened to include a range of biscuits and cakes, which we have offered here for you. The ant bakers had been extremely fussy and reluctant to work with ingredients that had been stuffed in the hull of a ship for several days. Freshness was a core element in their philosophy, apparently. Nevertheless, they had toiled away and delivered a slew of fine baked goods, artfully decorated with images of their beloved queens, and Anthony. She knew these traders would be unable to resist the offerings once they'd had a taste, she just needed to break down the barriers preventing them from attempting it. Before them was a long and wide table, laden with inviting food prepared by the colony's finest bakers. She stepped forward, lifting a small, bite-sized offering, and popped it into her mouth. The fluffiness of the cake, the richness of the cream, the perfect blend of sour and sweet within the apricot jam, all capped off with bursts of freshness from perfectly sliced chunks of fresh strawberry. It was exceedingly good, and she had no trouble showing her appreciation on her face. She took up another one and offered it to the loud chef from earlier. You have your pride as an artisan, which is well earned and widely respected, she said, buttering him up. Surely you aren't intimidated by something prepared by a monster. She'd backed him into a corner, and he knew it. His eyes narrowed, but nonetheless, he reached out to take hold of the cake. The moment his fingers touched it, she knew it was over. This trip was going to be so profitable. Chapter 1158. Anthony on Tour Part 10. Thoris is beaming like a cat who got the cream. Also the fish, probably nibbled on a rare and endangered bird as well. So it really went that well. Oh yes, she assures me. The number of offers we received is modest, but the impression we made was devastating. Once we prove we are able to move the quantity and quality we promised, orders will start flooding in. Fair enough, I suppose. On the surface once again, Lake Spire is now in our wake as the Brathians are counting their gains. Quick question, is Aran your name, or your title? I ask. She turns to me, still struggling to keep the satisfied smile from her face. It's both, she says. The Aran is the head negotiator for the conglomerate, which also became my name when I assumed the role. Wait, you have to give up your name to become the head negotiator? Of course, she nods. In this position, I am the sharpest blade and the stiffest shield of the conglomerate. In many ways, my role is more important than that of the satrap. An Aran is required to be ready to go into battle at a moment's notice and fight to the bitter end. There is no role for ego in someone who takes up such a burden. Yeesh. There's a glint of steel in her eye and I know she means what she says, but I remind myself she's just talking about haggling. She doesn't literally have to fight anyone. The Brathians take their commerce way too seriously. Sue, can I just call you Aran? That's fine, right? So, Aran, where are we going next, and for the love of life, will I be able to stretch my legs when we get there? Stuck in the middle of this tub, I've barely been able to move for days. If this goes on much longer, I'm going to lift myself up using gravity and I don't care how dumb it looks. We are on our way to Freehill and should be there in another 2 days, she says. That's where the folk hang out, isn't it? It's where they live. They're a fairly nomadic people, but Freehill is the largest permanent settlement they have. They don't have a centralized government, as such, but their council meets in Freehill to discuss matters that impact all of their people. Oh right, I wonder if they've decided if the colony qualify as people yet. Iran frowns at me. I'm not sure what you mean. We've met some of the folk before. Found 2 of them on some sort of training journey and they stayed with us for a while. White and gray, they called themselves. Helped us out in a pinch. I should probably try and meet up with them if I get a chance. Marsben, who's been listening in nearby, chips in at this point. Where did you meet these 2? He asks. Up in the 2nd stratum. We were in a tight spot at the time and they really helped us out. Do I need to detail the siege we went through, fighting against the Legion and Golgari at the same time? I'll go with no. It's unusual to see them that high up, Marsben says, arms folded across his chest. Whoever was being trained must have been fairly young. Yeah, white, some sort of prodigy, or so I'm told. Do you have any idea what sort of rank your associates were? Gray was the trainer, I think you said. It might be helpful if this person can vouch for us when we set up our stalls. Pretty sure Gray said he was a blade master. Iran freezes and Marsben blanches as I speak. What? Is there something I should know? Their reaction tells me that something is going on. Thankfully, they're willing to explain it to me. Blade masters are the most respected, Iran starts. And most dangerous, Marsben mutters. Figures amongst the folk, the traitor finishes, shooting her brother-in-law a glare. If a blade master is willing to vouch for the colony, then that will help a great deal in legitimizing our business venture amongst their people. I didn't realize Gray was such a big deal. Alright, that's good, I suppose. I have no idea if he'll be there when we arrive, but we can try and reach out, I suppose. He said he was going to try and get his people to approve an alliance with the colony. Or at least not have them hunt us. I consider for a moment. What sort of place is Freehill? Anyway, I'm going to assume it's above the water at least. Marsben fills me in. It's a mountain, same as every other one in the 4th. The folk don't live inside it, like your people do, but Freehill is a city that runs around the outside of it. Like it encircles the whole mountain. He nods. It's enormous. The folk don't really believe in dense living, so everything is quite spread out, and different sections of the city are usually inhabited by different breeds of folk. The communal areas are higher up the mountain, and the council meets right at the top of the city, not the mountain. Well, if it's spacious, then surely I'll get to move around a bit. Under guard, I've got no doubt. Who lets a mythic monster run around amongst your people? Soon to be eaten people. I mean, I wouldn't, but someone like Garalosh doesn't bear thinking about. As we speed through the waters of the endless lake, I can't help but get excited about the chance to meet some new people, stretch my legs and catch up with some old acquaintances. The folk are tightly allied with the Bruinchi, so I'm guessing they'll be more or less happy to receive me and my siblings. The only real question is whether they're in need of finely made and well-priced goods. Chapter 1159, Anthony on Tour Part 11. My first glimpse of Freehill pretty much confirmed everything that Marsben had said about it. The place is huge. Now, I'm no geologist, and I can't tell you what size any of the mountains on Earth were, or how wide, or their circumference. However, I seriously doubt that any mountain from my previous planet holds a candle to the behemoths that hold up the 3rd stratum. I mean, the pillars in the 3rd were pretty damn impressive on their own, but the 3rd is stacked in layers, the 4th is just one vast open space held up by freaking huge mountains. And this particular mountain is dang near covered by the city of Freehill. Not further up, obviously, but the base of the thing is a forest of mixed housing. A totally eclectic mix of housing styles dots the slope as far as my eyes can see. Weird pagoda-looking things, tents, log cabin-like constructions, all grouped into little districts without any apparent rhyme or reason. Despite the disorganized nature of it all, I can tell the place is packed. There must be millions of people on that mountain. Clearly, the folk aren't just surviving in the dungeon, they are thriving. I remark as much to Marsben. The folk appear to be pretty darn prosperous, judging by the size of the place. Do you guys do a lot of trade with them? They are strong fighters with a reputation for martial prowess, he nods, which is well earned. As a result, there aren't many who are willing to poke the beast, so to speak. Yes, we do a fair amount of trade with them, Iran adds the, in her view, more important information, though the folk aren't huge consumers of most goods. They prefer to live a humbler existence than most of the races. Even their leaders aren't fond of grand displays of wealth. Sounds like they might get along with the colony in that sense. The queens are treated better than anyone else in the family, and that's mostly against their wishes. They'd joyfully live just the same as every other ant if we'd let them. Bah! The ships pull into the bustling docks that seem to ring the entire mountain. From my position, hunched on the deck of the barge, I can see Iran as she leaves the ship and meets the person in charge. Obviously, they had word the fleet was going to arrive, because things are soon sorted and the Brathian lead negotiator returns with a reserved smile. You have permission to disembark, but they insist that the number of ants allowed on the land at one time be limited to 1,000. You yourself will need to be accompanied while you are in the city. Is that acceptable? Of course it is. I'm dying to get off this boat. I've been here for almost a week. If the folk demand I stick woolly mittens on my mandibles to blunt their edges, I wouldn't blink. Hey, getting something of my mass off a boat in the water is quite the operation, as it turns out. I pick my way forward, one step at a time, while the Brathian try to counterbalance the weight as to avoid capsizing their biggest barge. It takes 10 minutes, but finally my legs touch down on solid ground and I can't help but clack my mandibles happily. I'm off the ship, first order of business a clean. Holy moly, I didn't realize how badly the need for ant cleanliness had ingrained itself in me. Normally I don't even think about it, my legs just move on their own while I'm thinking about something else, but the need for a wash has been driving me crazy. 20 minutes later, I'm finally satisfied with the state of my carapace, antennae and legs. Nothing cleans quite like fresh formic acid. Cleansed and ready to go, I take a good look around me for the first time. The dock is bustling, which is to be expected. My siblings have been busy unloading the fleet, stacking the crates in neat rows along the stone quay I'm standing on. The Brathians are also out and about, stretching their legs, negotiating for food, lodgings, provisions and various other matters regarding the fleet. What really grabs my attention is the folk themselves. White and gray both had wolfish features, and I'd assumed that all the folk looked like that, but apparently I was quite wrong. In fact, looking around, there don't seem to be many rules at all for what qualifies as a member of the folk. There are wolfish-looking humanoids, sure. Also some cat-featured ones. Some mousy-looking ones are about, a fair bit shorter than the others. I see a large one with what appears to be a lion's mane. Not to say they're all fuzzy, oh no, a group with leathery gray skin walk past carrying cargo, their noses replaced with horns. And the consistency of animalistic features differs wildly. Some of them could almost pass as human, with perhaps a strange angular look to their features, or a bit of colored fur on their arms. Others are way more distinct, with snouts, or double-jointed legs, or tails. Gray had tried to explain to me that the folk were an alliance of disparate people, but I'd never really understood what he was talking about. Then I saw what must be a snake folk and just gave up trying to work out what species were represented. There don't seem to be any rules here. To one degree or another, every member of the folk is some blend of humanoid and animal, with the slider between the two set to random. What the hey, I can get behind it. So long as they aren't interested in hunting down my family, I don't have a problem with it. Just like I'm staring at them, not that they can tell, they are also staring at me. I suppose it's not every day they see a giant ant hanging out on the docks. I wave an antenna and look around for Iran, only to find her down by my leg, waiting impatiently. If you're done cleaning yourself, we can meet your guards over there and leave this place. She wrinkles her nose. Wherever cities meet the sea, there is always a distinct odor. You mean the poop? Yes, she sighs, the poop. Come to think of it, wouldn't every city dump their waste into the lake? Is that an issue? I mean, you guys live in there. Iran begins to lead the way and I follow after. Her eyes narrow as she folds her arms across her chest. Let's just say we invest a great deal into filtration technology. Chapter 1160, Anthony on Tour Part 12. Free Hill is buzzing. The folk seem to love music, dancing, and fighting in pretty much equal measure. As tall as I am, I can see over the roofs of the buildings that line the wide street I'm led down, and pretty much everywhere I look there is either an impromptu hoedown, or a group of cheering folk watching some brawlers throw down. In fact, I catch glimpses of straight-up fighting pits in the distance, with rows of wooden benches circling a sand-filled arena. At the end of the dock, Iran introduces herself to two tough-looking individuals, each bearing large blades on their backs. The first is dressed in loose black robes with a dog-like snout and a nasty scar, the other seems rabbitish. She doesn't have the ears, but there's something about the nose that speaks to me of whiskers. Without a word, to me at least, they fall in beside me, one on either side, and Iran continues to lead the way. Her own Brathian guards, along with Marsban and the rest of her family, are with her, of course, but plenty of locals have wriggled into the entourage as well. Like a conductor, Thoris deals with each of them in the correct timing, reassuring this one, placating that one and dismissing the third. For my part, I just keep my eyes open metaphorically and take in the sights. My two guards appear quite bored as they stroll along by my sides, but the people on the street give us a wide berth, which suits me just fine. I'm not trying to stand on anyone. Eventually we come to a nice-looking building, 3 stories high, constructed from polished beams of a wood I don't quite recognize. The best thing about the place is that it adjoins one of those gaps between the various clusters of habitation that make up Freehill. Which means my aunt brethren and I have somewhere to stay. Only 1,000 of us are allowed off the ships at one time, so numbers will have to be rotated. I feel bad, but I'm not going back on board, which means 21 slots are more or less permanently filled. So do we just sleep out in the open, or are we allowed to whip something up real quick? I ask Iran, but it's Marsban who answers. Let me talk to your security. He walks over to one of the guards and respectfully engages them in conversation. The rabbit lady doesn't seem to care that much, pointing to the field and shrugging, then pointing to me. As long as you don't tunnel below ground level, and as long as you specifically aren't out of their sight, they don't mind. Oh, nice. Good thing Cobalt is around. She and a few other ants have followed along in my wake, waiting to see where the rest of our siblings would be allowed to stay. Hey, Cobalt, we can make a nest in this field apparently. We aren't allowed to dig below surface level, though. Everything above ground. That's quite accommodating of them, she says, relieved. I was worried we would need to rest out in the open. The two of us shudder. The other ants have been comfortably packed below decks, but I've had to suffer under the open sky. Given the choice, I'm sure all of them would rather sleep in the ships than be without a roof over their head. I find a spot to stand, unwilling to plonk myself on the ground so soon after being freed from the ship, while Cobalt heads back to the dock, returning with a workforce of several hundred carvers. As soon as they arrive, they get to work, conjuring up the earth and stone they need to throw together a temporary but comfortable nest. In the meantime, I try to reach out to one of my guards with a mind bridge. So am I allowed to talk to you? If you want to, the dog guy yawns. Seriously, these two seem extremely relaxed for people on guard duty. I was wondering if either of you had heard of Gray or White. They were some folk that I met before, up on the second stratum. The dog guy frowns, thinking, then replies in the negative. Not that I can think of. There are a lot of us around. I think Gray is a blade master, if that means anything. It does. You met a blade master, on the second. He sounds a little baffled. Yeah, he was traveling with his student, White. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm just surprised he didn't kill you. Why would he kill us? We're friendly. Monster hunting is one of the main ways we make our living, he says, looking at my carapace in a decidedly mercantile way. And you look pretty valuable for an ant. Hey, I resent that. For one thing, every ant is valuable, and second, I would kick your butt all up and down the street if one of you tried to get your mitts on my core. He grins, and all of a sudden he looks a lot more wolfish than he does doggish. Is that a challenge? He asks, sounding intent. I shrug my antennae. What does that mean? If I say yes, do we fight to the death or something? No, we engage in honorable combat to determine a victor before witnesses. I look down at him, trying not to be insulting. Are you sure you even want that? You're just a little guy, after all. Wouldn't you need to bring a few friends if you want to beat a monster like me? The rabbit folk is openly laughing by the time I'm done, and the dog folk is looking even more aggressive. Oh, you've said it now. Are you going to accept my challenge, or not? I've been cooped up on a ship for a week. I'm happy to stretch my legs and brains and mandibles. Alright, sure, I'll try not to hurt you.